From forced penetrations to human maggot soups, humans have been pretty creative with pain. So let's rank the worst punishments in human history. The Judas Cradle. It's medieval times, and the Spanish Inquisitors have arrested you for cursing out the Pope in your sleep. But of course, you didn't do that. You know that's just the king trying to get you for winking at his mistress. So your Casanova days are over. But there's some good news. The Inquisitors have decided to serve you the kindest punishment on their menu. So on the day of your punishment, they tie you to a harness to lift you onto an elevated seat. But as you get closer, you realize this is not just any seat. It's the Judas Cradle! The Judas Cradle was a simple, tall, three-legged stool, but instead of a boring flat top, the Inquisitors gave the cradle a pyramid with a sharp, pointy tip. So, as soon as the harness drops your open butthole on the tip of the pyramid, the sides of the pyramid will stretch and rip your butt crack apart. And that was what they meant by tearing you a new one back in the day. But don't worry, the suffering on the cradle itself didn't take many lives. However, with so many buttholes harassing one poor tip, many torn butt cracks got infected, and since antibiotics weren't a thing yet, these infections took many people from the cradle to the grave. The Judas Cradle sits on D tier for being such a pain in the ass. The Pear of Anguish. You see, in medieval times, when the authorities wanted you to confess to saying Mary wasn't a virgin or humiliate you for pegging your pet pig with a cross, they deployed the choke pear. Although it's called the choke pear, it didn't necessarily go down your throat. Depending on your transgression, you could get a pear in your mouth, vagina, or anus. This looks like someone had a weird fetish back then, but it's hard to imagine this evil fruit being used in the bedroom. However, in the hands of a punisher, the pear was a deadly device. All the punisher had to do was force the pear's bulbous head into an orifice, turn the screw at its handle to expand the bulb, and watch you scream. Heard you did it to a dog this time, you dirty dog. It wasn't my fault. The silly animal was giving me the eye. Well then, I have just the solution for that. Ow, 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 ow! Now, where are we on funny business with animals? I think I'm in love with the dog. Again! No! Yeah, that was how they rolled in the Dark Ages. They just had people walking around with gaping buttholes they got from non-consensual anals. This effed up fetishistic punishment definitely belongs in F tier. The breaking wheel. Say someone was charged with murder or treason, or maybe they robbed a small wagon back in medieval Europe. Once they were found guilty of any of those crimes, there was a good chance they'd get the breaking wheel. They'd be splayed on a wooden wheel with their limbs spread apart and fastened to the rim. And if this was one of those wheels with sharp wooden spikes, they were in some deep shit. As the executioner pounded his iron hammer on their bones again and again, the spikes under their body would also pierce through their skin and break them from beneath. And over several days, the executioner would take his time to crush their leg bones and slowly work his way up to their hands. Do you know what, dude? Just kill me already, man! I don't kill people, okay? I just enjoy smashing idiots like you up for fun. Can I tell you something interesting? What? I don't even get paid for this. After the executioner was satisfied with his work, he and his deputies would fix a long pole into the wheel's spoke. Then they'd plant the pole in a public area to entertain the community with the dying body. The breaking wheel didn't just break the human's will to live, it also broke into C tier on this list. The Brazen Bull. This is Paralaus, the Greek Einstein who invented the Brazen Bull in Athens. This guy sacrificed hours of his life to give you the most breathtaking torture device in human history. Picture the most realistic sculpture of a bronze bull ever made. Now, squeeze some poor farmer into the hollow bull through the door on its side. Make sure their head is aligned with the bull's head, then close the door and light a fire under the bull. In the belly of the beast, you'll notice the unfortunate fellow running out of oxygen and choking on the smell of his roasting flesh in the red-hot chamber. But can you hear them screaming? No, you can't, because Paralaus fitted the bull's head with a system of tubes that converted those human screams into bull bellows. The crowning piece of this bull wasn't even its pointy horns, it was how Paralaus directed the smoke to escape through its nostrils as its victims burned like a common animal. However, while Paralaus was the brain, someone had to pay the bills for the bull. With your image of the Brazen Bull, you'd agree Paralaus should have never shown it to an insane tyrant like Phalaris, but if he hadn't, the bull would have never come to life as it did after Phalaris commissioned one in Acragos in Sicily. So something had to give. What do you need need to make my bull? I need a lot of bronze. You'll get your every ounce of bronze in Sicily, but I want this to look like the real thing. You bet, Phallus. It's Phalaris, you fool! Hey, my bad. Yeah, Phalaris. Never met a who hates being called a phallus. What did you say? I said I need 2 assistants. When Paralaus finished the hollow bronze bull, Phalaris stuffed every rebel in Akragas into the bull and amused himself with how the scorching fire under the bull reduced them to charcoal and bones. Still, the most interesting fact about the Brazen Bull was that Phalaris himself was toasted alive in it after he was overthrown. The Brazen Bull later made its way to Rome, where the Romans used it to execute some early Christians. With all that burning and choking, surely a minute in this A-tier piece of genius must have felt like hell on earth. The Spanish donkey. If you saw a rectangular wooden beam on 4 wooden legs, you might mistake it for a toy, but the Spanish Inquisition had other uses for this exotic torture device. From the period of the Spanish Inquisition to the American Civil War, if you were a suspected heretic or enemy soldier, your ass could have landed on the Spanish donkey's razor-sharp edge. And in case you weren't heavy enough, extra weights would be tied to your legs to ensure gravity pulled you down into the knife edge you were sitting on. And in a short time, the sharp wood would cut a deep groove from your asshole to your ballsack. Heard the Spanish king lent you his donkey, so how was your ride? I've been pissing through my balls since I got off that godforsaken donkey. Yikes, that must have been rough. Rough? My doesn't work anymore, bro. Oh, so does that mean I can f your wife now? You friggin' bastard! The British would later elevate this Spanish invention to high art by giving their version a head and a tail, to increase its entertainment value. And nothing bonded medieval communities better than watching a man bleed his balls out on C-tier torture devices like this one. Ling Chi. If you lived in China between the 10th century and 1905, you didn't want to commit mass murder, treason, matricide, or kill your boss. You probably don't want to do any of that at any other time either, just saying. But let's say, for example, your boss called you an idiot in front of your girlfriend. Then you ambushed him with a crossbow, but your arrow missed his eye and went through his heart. Well, you just won yourself a Ling Chi. Yay! Or what the English called death by 1,000 cuts or slow slicing. When you get the Ling Chi, you'll get tied to a pole, usually in public, and the executioner will use a super sharp knife to cut pieces of your flesh. And he'll do this for as many days as you can stay alive while being peeled like a potato. Hey, executioner, can I tell you something? Shoot, man. I think your knife is blunt. Weird guy. I'm kinda getting used to this, I don't think you have much of a choice, man. I can't lie to you, bro. This hurts. You almost made me believe you had superpowers, man. Tomorrow I'll take your ears. What's wrong with him? I think he's dead. To end this punishment, the executioner would either cut your heart out or decapitate you. If you knew the penalty for your crime was an A-tier punishment like Ling Chi, you probably wouldn't lose your head in the first place. The rat torture. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, if you found yourself in a pitch-dark cell under the Tower of London, you were fucked. This cell was located below the River Thames to make sure that when the water rose, the rats from the Thames swam to the tower's wall and found their way down into the cell. There, they'd find you as a blind, weak prisoner and nibble your flesh for days until they were tearing skin off your carcass. But down in Holland, the Dutch had a different approach to rat torture. During the Dutch revolt of the 16th and 17th centuries, the Dutch would fill pottery bowls with rats and turn them face down on a prisoner's body. Then they heated the bottom of the bowl with charcoal, and as the trapped animals fought to escape the heat, they ate their way through the victims who writhed in pain until their final breath. However, nobody was better at rat torture than the South Americans. The horror they created with those things was simply spectacular. It was in the mid-1970s, during the dictatorship of Jorge Rafael Videla, and the Argentinian tyrant came up with the rectoscope. They connected a tube to a prisoner's rectum or vagina and delivered a rat into the opening through the tube. And since the confused little thing had nowhere else to go,
what the f*** is this piece of shit?
It moved up through its unwilling host and bit through its organs as it did so. This caused intense internal bleeding that eventually killed the prisoner. Those are just some of the breathtaking exploits of rats as A-tier torture animals. Poo Koule. The prize for killing your father in ancient Rome was one of the most ruthless punishments you could ever think of. If you got Poo Koule, or the penalty of the sack, you'd first be beaten until every organ in your body hurts and you could hardly move your body. Then the Romans would fit your legs in wooden shoes before sewing you up in the sack. But the sack could be a very lonely place, so the Romans were kind enough to give you some friends to keep you company. At first, they only threw snakes in the sack, but in the 2nd century AD, Emperor Hadrian introduced other animals into the mix. Don't you think the snakes need some friends too? What would you suggest we give them, Master? How about a monkey, a dog, and a rooster or chicken? Fantastic choices, my lord. But these animals never wanted to play, so instead they'd tear and shred your limp body as they tried to escape the commotion in the sack. As cruel as Poo Koule looks, you won't believe this B-tier punishment actually stuck around until 18th century Germany. Scaphism. In ancient Greece and Persia, when you committed treason or murder, they took you to the boats and killed you with milk and honey. This sounds like they killed you with what? Until you hear how the Greeks and Persians did it. You'd either be tied between 2 boats or inside a hollowed-out tree trunk. Then they'd force-feed you lots of milk and honey and rub some on your body. Ordinarily, the milk and honey on your body would have attracted insects and all kinds of disgusting vermin. But too much of that mixture in your body would also mess your bowel up and make you shit yourself. And your decaying excrement would invite even more pests and parasites to invade your body. This process would continue for days until the maggots took your soul and someone had to clean up all that mess. This B-tier execution style is probably the grossest way to die. Ugh. Drawing and quartering. Suppose you were William Wallace, and at the beginning of the 14th century, you led the Scots in the First War of Scottish Independence against the British Crown. Now, what you've done there wasn't just your everyday cute act of treason, it was high treason, and you'd get the highest punishment in Britain for your tomfoolery. So, like most first-class traitors, you'd be tied to a horse, and the beast would drag your body over bare earth as it took you to the gallows. There you'd be hanged until you were on the brink of death. Then you'd be forced to watch as they burned your testicles and intestines, and as the crowd cheered at the embers of your burning bollocks. Without your intestines, you'd die anyway, but nobody who effed with the king got a peaceful demise. So in preparation for your quartering, you'd be decapitated. Then your limbs would be attached to 4 horses, and as they pulled them in different directions, your body would snap into 4 pieces of human meat. After this, your bloody body parts would be displayed where every eye could see them. And this was just a royal gangster reminder to everyone thinking about effing with the crown. William even got the special honor of having the first head to be displayed on the iconic London Bridge. If this S-tier punishment had not been abolished in 1870, you can bet some heads would be rolling right now with all the crown hate going on in the world. Crushed by elephant. But the monarchs you really didn't want to offend were in southern Asia, especially the Indian kings. These guys trained elephants into killing machines, and once in a while they let the mini mammoths show their skills in grand public executions. Sometimes the elephant rider simply instructed the beast to trample on a dissenter until the king showed mercy, but other times they'd make you face the full terror of what a deranged adult elephant could do to a puny human being. On these occasions, they'd make the massive animal walk across your body multiple times until it crushed your brain and other internal organs while using its tusks to puncture holes in your skin. But the kings weren't the demons you think they were. That was just their way of putting rebellious commoners in their place and striking fear in their disobedient subjects. But for some weird reason, the British colonialists ended this A-tier cruelty in the 19th century.